Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a collective of book-loving nerds rereading Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series. From book 1 to book 16 million, we'll be uncovering every secret connection there is to find. Today we are joined by Swiggity Swoo.
We are here to discuss your car's extended warranty.
Kay.
Hello.
And I'm ReaderWarrior. Dragon will be joining us later, forewarning. And today we are going to be talking about Elantris, Part 3, The Spirit of Elantris, chapters 60 through 63. The final 4 chapters.
And unfortunately, John is out sick today, so he will not be joining us.
He will next week.
Yep.
For our final episode where we talk about the epilogue, and we were talking about
rankings.
There was like another story too in the 10th anniversary.
The Ars Arcanum.
But I guess you guys want to start with what we're talking about today, chapter 60. Okay, so that one's mine, and I'm just gonna launch right into it. Depressing times as Galadon and Karada find Reread Hoid and decide to bring him to the well as he once requested. And fair warning, this is going to change perspectives a lot. So try to hold on, but Lukel hugs his wife and his mother. They are marched into Elantris alongside an unconscious Kyain, Kais, and Daorn, and Idain. He believes they are marching to their execution. Hrathen, Sereni, Dilaf, and a crap ton of Decor monks all teleport to Teod, an action that used Decor magic and sacrifice of a monk's soul to transport them. Dilaf wants to destroy Teod. Him and 3 Decor monks jump to a rooftop and see a fleet of ships approaching in the bay. So they're early and they're going to wait for the army to come try to destroy the Teod navy, which I hear is pretty tough.
No one defeats the Teo Armada.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. I like the line where Galadin is like, we might very well be the last 2 remaining conscious Elantrians, and then it immediately cuts to a chapter that has Adain in it.
Yeah.
But to be fair, they don't know about him, and we don't know about him either at this point.
Yes. I know, it's just the subliminal writing of Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah.
Oh, just wait. Because in this very chapter, back in Elantris, Galadon still has hope. Despite all of the carnage that just went down in Elantris, Mareshi has a large chest wound, Tay-Ain the craftsman has his face crushed under a stone, KR the old cleaner is missing his legs and one of his arms. And even after all that, he still hopes Raiden can somehow fix things, even as they prepare to lay him in the pool. That paragraph was, or a couple paragraphs, was one of my favorites. Like, the whole thing of him, the pessimistic doula being forced to hope by Raoden's contagious spirit.
He's being optimistic.
Despite his very nature. Yeah, I just love that. Where are we? So the nobles are led into Elantris by the Sudioth monks and a few Decor monks to be burned alive. Shuden begins doing ninja hand signals called the Che Shan and inspires Lukel to equip himself with a table leg for Bashan when the time comes. This one, some of you won't get, but Raoden rides the Stormfather while in his Hoid state. Lukel witnesses the true horror of being an undead Elantrian who had a disagreement with a sword, while Adain unfortunately has to go through it himself when an angry monk slashes through his chest, and 5 years of subterfuge revealing that Adain has been an Elantrian the whole time. Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun.
Dilaf. Oh, go ahead.
Very little setup to that, but I still like it.
It almost kind of feels like one of those things like well, he would have had to be an Elantrian the whole time. But it feels like something that might have been worked backwards, you know,
Yeah.
maybe later.
And there was a little bit like the twins and the family knowing stuff about Elantrians specifically that they should not have, but
True.
there was nothing really linking that to Adain all that well.
I definitely missed it my first time through. Like, when we started reading it again for the podcast, it wasn't on my mind until you guys brought it up. I had totally forgotten about it.
Yeah, it's a very minor note. All, like, all in all.
So Delof reveals he knows Hrathen from way back when young Hrathen ran away from the Decor Monastery. Something Hrathen blames on Delof himself, saying that the Gragdet sacrificed a monk to travel across town, saving him only 15 minutes. Which, it did stick with me as well. Just like this idea of Delof sacrificing a guy just to get across town. Like, that's crazy.
It like
To some place that he could walk in 15 minutes. Not even that he could like ride on a horse in 15 minutes. He could walk there in 15 minutes. This place isn't even across town. It's like down the street.
and it's like not only is it making him you are so devoted that you will do this for this, but also it shows the other people you have to be this devoted to me.
Right, that's how he defends it. He's like, the sacrifices and examples need to be made. Which, we'll get into Delof's whole backstory. And when he was telling that, I started to feel something for Delof. But then you remember moments like these.
That he's batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Raoden keeps seeing Aeon Reo, which stands for spirit, which is also his namesake, and realizes it is basically the shape of Elantris from Bird's Eye View. The three Decor monks sing a foreign-sounding chant as they all pour oil on the bodies. Delof plans to stab Sereni in the back in front of her father, and Hrathen is feeling a real big loser for even being associated with these guys. Raoden regains consciousness with the answer to their problems on the tip of his tongue, but his spring back to reality causes Galadon to drop him right in the pool. Alright, and that's the end of the chapter.
Joining us now, we do have Dragon. Thank you. Welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So we're still on the first chapter, still in the spoiler-free section. Boy, there's a lot that I could talk about, but will mean nothing.
What do you mean?
Like, I put, like, some notes just to remember there's a point of view, like, shooting, doing karate in the background, LOL.
Yeah.
I mean,
True.
Delof just randomly starts monologuing about his past. Just like Doofenshmirtz to Perry, just like, let me tell you about the tales of my youth in Doofelstein. Trick.
He does.
It's true. That's exactly what happens.
And even like when he's approaching Aventio with the knife in Sereni's back, he's just monologuing. He's like, "Oh, you're the worst. Before you came along, those Elantrians were garbage." And like,
I love a two-dimensional villain.
By God, you got me monologuing.
But I also like that the story, the tale of his wife is when like did we have a vision of it, or was it just in the medical notes?
It was
It is
just-
in the medical notes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought there was a vision of it.
No, it's mentioned in the medical notes about it, and that's it.
Yeah, but I like that was set up.
yeah, I
Yeah,
do
that
too.
it comes back around.
I mean, kind of how we were saying it's a little bit unsatisfying. Like, Idain being secretly an Elantrian. Like, I'm not really sure what the difference is because there was almost just as much setup, but it certainly does feel nice.
I think it's because Idaine is an actual character in the story that later does something, whilst this is a dead wife character that we never see.
No, but that kind of makes sense. I guess if something is just lore, then it's easy for you to just kind of accept.
Well, and with this, it's part of the reason it's nice is because it gives Delof a reason to hate the Elantrians. Because so far, we've just been like, oh yeah, he just doesn't like the Elantrians. Like, but he doesn't really have a reason to not like them. Like, this actually gives him a reason.
It does humanize him in an aspect because it's just like, oh, religious, like
Fervor.
blah, right? Fervor, and just like, cause religion tells me so. But this does like help give him some depth. That it's like, I mean, I was thinking about it, right? Listening to this, I mean, and so each of listeners for each, and then all three of you, like, imagine the person that you're closest to, that you love the most, parent, sibling, spouse, significant partner, right? That they get so sick that you will like break every single thing that you believe in just to help them. And then they get put in so much agony that they literally commit suicide. And I bet some listeners have been in a situation like that, right? People just don't like the situation then. And she was in so much pain that she threw herself off the top of the wall. And she survived. And then was in even more pain. And so the only thing he could think to do was to burn her. And she was screaming the entire time. And so he still hears in his head like the screams. That's why he's like, I will finally put this to sleep, right?
Yeah, it is.
No, it's
One of my favorite concepts is just like the idea that the only way that much hatred can be forged is through a connection of love originally.
We knew that he's already a fervent person of the Core and Fjordell and the shoot.
Direth.
Thank you. 50-50 here.
Dareth.
Yeah, Shudareth. And it was only, and we knew like he went to Erelon to spy on them and to like cause upheaval and stuff like that, to do basically what we saw. But then he fell in love, and then that caused him to break his faith. He did against his teachings, and yet that failed him. I think it would not have been this way if he wasn't already anti-Elantrian and all that. I think, yes, it broke his mind, and like we see that he hears his wife screaming, but if he didn't already hate the Elantris,
You literally like, right? People of the faith like already will have like a specific art like thing that they follow, right? Like, I'm just going to use you as an example, reader, since you've mentioned Catholicism as something that you. So I hope you don't mind if I bring you into this example,
Sure.
right? So it's like, but then you also kind of think back, like back in the days you had, right, the Crusaders, who were people who had such a strong faith that they had a hate towards other people that they would already. So like, he is kind of like in this aspect of like this crusade where he has this strong faith, but he already also has, like you say, this hate. And so so I agree with you, like that was already there. And but then it's like so like this crusaders out killing on this crusade, inside of the Middle East, and then he hears that one of the like some that there's a Muslim that can like kill anyone, and they're like, boom, let's do this. Like, goes completely against his faith, and then it's like redoubles down his hatred. So I do agree. Like, you have to have that hatred beforehand, and that's kind of how I think of it. Is like he had that, and and I kind of tried to reference that. Like, he had to have been in a place where he already had this faith, went against it to people that he hated, that he loathed, that's against his every being and fiber, and then they make it worse, not better. So
I also wonder how much of it is hate for himself for allowing himself to feel that weak that he needed to go against his
He
hate.
just needs to see a good therapist, you know?
He probably does feel a lot of some hatred like towards himself because he probably feels like he as well like failed her by taking her there. Like if he hadn't taken her there, he would have spared her so much pain and suffering.
Like this weird, like survivor's guilt because of it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah, I can see
I
that.
can definitely see that.
But there's definitely there's more to it than that with his character. Like, I think he seems to have lost rationality along the way. Like, more so than, like, obviously that was a horrible thing that he went through, but I don't know. He's just insane at this point. Like, he's not.
Right. It humanizes him in an aspect, but the point is he's still doing inhumane things. But he was already a Dachor monk, right? He said for several years, right? He had already been transformed. He was already the Rogdit of Dachor,
And I
and
think
then he infiltrated, and then it's like 20 years later, or he didn't necessarily say he was the Rogdit already, but he said that he had been a Dachor monk already for several years, and he had undergone that special transformation. So he was, if he wasn't the Rogdit, he was like leading up to it because he already had them kill. They already
I
had like
think
this
he was.
transformation.
I would say I think he was already the Gragdet because of the fact that he was the Gragdet when Hrathen was at the Decor Monastery.
Right.
and
So
Yeah.
when he reveals that to Wraithen,
and
he
that
says,
was before he got changed into the heirloom.
Right. Yeah. You're right, because that had to have been before, because Wraithen's not like in his 20s or his 30s,
No, he's
so he's in his 40s or 50s, and that happened 20 years beforehand, and he remembered like the face, and he would have remembered if it was like an Aeroline face with blonde hair,
yeah.
and it wasn't. So you're right, he was Rugdet when
He's
Wraithen.
yeah.
Oh, actually, although we realize we're kind of
Moving into
was
the
that
next.
is that chapter 60, or is that bleeding into some of the other chapters where he talks about? No, it was this chapter, right? Where he also said like, "Hey, I remember your face." Like he's like, "Yeah, I was Rogda, and I'm the one. Like you're the one that drove me out because
yeah,
you made me because you sacrificed someone to teleport a 15-minute walk."
yep.
Mm, Yep.
We
That
haven't talked
was all this
about
chapter.
like the we haven't explicitly gone over the chapter where his backstory is revealed, but I would rather talk about it and have a better discussion than cut ourselves off just because we haven't officially like summarized it.
But we're gonna get to that chapter.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all. So we're bleeding into 61. Sorry, reader, if that's
What do you mean?
taking
This
away
is
from. I listened to 60 through 63 all today, so they kind of all like the lines all blur together as to which one's which chapter.
Right.
In between the one where Raoden, the POV of Raoden pressing against like the water and being like, "Oh, but now I feel pain," so he shies away from it.
Yeah,
And
that's all in 60.
That's all in
the-
60. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you have the Deloff backstory one where he starts monologuing, and then you have the one where Galadin drops.
But is that's
It's
is
about
the it's all
60.
in 60, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and
where
then
you get
have
the back.
Galadin kind of place Raoden outside the chamber with his head laying upside down so he can see the city. Which, by God, thank Dula that Galadin laid him exactly like that so he can look over the city that way.
Seriously. Anyway,
I was wondering
I
about
think-
this. You know, just food for thought, right? In order to see the city from that view, like you'd have to be pretty far above it. Like you'd have to have an actual bird's eye view, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And
yeah. Well,
just,
they're really high up the mountain.
so they're up on top of the mountain and it's like high enough to see.
Yes.
Because I was just wondering, like the construction of these cities, in order to look like that from bird's eye view, would require that POV, and it got me wondering, like, is there an Aeon for that, or how they might, which came first, even?
The city or the Aeons? Is that what you're asking?
Pretty much, the
I think
router,
that
Aeon, or the city.
I have had some lengthy debates with one of my friends about that. But I think that would probably be best saved for
That's a spoiler section.
spoiler section to have
Okay.
the
We
debate
don't have
which
an
came
answer.
first, the Elantrian or the Aeon.
And I think we've had a lot of
We've
conversations
had
about this as well.
arguments over that already.
The chicken or the egg. So you know.
Yeah.
But just the clue of, like, oh, you need to see the city from, like, really high above to, to get the Aeon out of it. Anyways.
And then
But
there
also,
was,
if the fact that he can do it on the mountain could just mean someone stood on the mountain
Yeah.
to like look and go, oh, this would be kind of a great pattern in construction. Well, here, let's drop the building schematics. You know.
The mountain does kind of put it out of.
So.
then we have the brief little line that three shirtless warriors sang some sort of chant in language that sounded too harsh and unfamiliar before y'all. So there's like a different language for Dakor than there is for just normal Fjordell.
Yeah. So I think it's in my chapter that they're actually speaking. Rayoden is able to recognize what language it is, and I think it's like ancient Fjordell is the language that they're speaking. If I remember correctly, is what he says.
Sure, I'll keep a lookout for that later.
He sees. It's in chapter 63, and it's talking about
Oh, is it?
the
This is
symbols
not
that
at
he
63.
sees. It's about the symbols that he sees, and
Oh,
it's not
okay.
the language that he recognizes, but the writing.
Yeah,
So
I'm
we'll
talking
get to that.
verbally. Like they
Okay.
speak a language, and it's not.
Yes,
Fjordell.
yes, but they do speak a language that's more guttural and than.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I got.
But they don't recognize it or make any
Okay.
comments at the time.
Absolutely no Sereni POV in this entire chapter. 61. As Dilof places the blade of his knife to Sereni's neck, Hrathen remembers who he is, was, and who he wants to be. He roars and punches Dilof right in his stupid face. Dilof tries to stab him, but the knife bounces off his chest plate. This surprises him, since the armor is supposed to be fake. But Hrathen never fakes anything, except for that one time where he pretended to be an Elantrian. He takes Dilof's sword and then punches him again and warns Inventio about the invading armada. Hrathen pushes Sereni down a street and prepares to fight.
I would say that it's not that he doesn't fake anything. I would say it's that he doesn't half-ass anything.
He's in the exact quote is, "I don't do anything just for show."
Yeah,
Or,
exactly.
I don't do anything for show. The whole him pretending to be an Elantrian, kneeling there, putting on a show, and drawing attention.
Okay, so I've been thinking about this line all day.
Is that the? Can you pull up your book? Is that the exact wording? You don't do anything for show.
It is, or it's something very similar, because, like, you're right. Everything he appears to do is for show. When he first arrives, he's trying to convert them, but he's trying to convert them because they're about to die if he doesn't. And like you said, he goes and poisons himself in a fake way to show, like, Jadith's power. And I totally understand that, but, like, all of that stuff he was doing was what he felt he had to do for Shudirith. And who he is in this moment is him saying, like, well, actually, I believe in Jadith, and everything that I've done was to save these people. And, like, maybe I had to use a little bit of subterfuge in that, but I was doing it for what I thought was right, just like I'm doing now by kicking your ass.
And I was taking it, so the language is, like, nothing I do is just for show. I did pull it up in my book.
You should know
It's
by now,
not
Dilof.
just for
Hrathen
show.
said, nothing
And
I do is just for show.
And it's a note, kind of, that the fact that, like, nothing he does is, like, just for the sake of, like, doing it. Like, everything that he is doing has a purpose and that he is fully committed to doing, I think is kind of
Yeah.
what he's saying.
I mean, the words themselves can be taken in either direction, right? As like,
Yeah.
I don't do anything just for show, and then it's like, what have you been doing this whole time? You like
Yeah.
you pray for show, you do all these things. But it also in this chapter, there's a reference to in 61, he talks about like his confidence in himself. He felt more confident, like he was doing the right thing to save people, which is what he believes Yadith wants. Is he wants saved people saved underneath him, not people eliminated underneath him, in order to do that. And he references back to his conviction when he first came to not
He's-
Elantris, but the
Erelon.
Kai.
yeah, and to Ke,
Okay.
right? As they, at least in the audio, how it pronounces it.
He's now viewing himself not as an apostle of the church, but
Right.
as an apostle of God.
Right, exactly. And he said he has this, but he harks it back to his conviction when he first shows up in KE, when he first steps off the boat. That's kind of what he references, like when he's talking about his conviction in this moment when he's thinking about, like, I'm pretty sure it says he takes off his armor. But so I just find that an interesting piece, that it's like, in the beginning it really wasn't for show, and then we kind of have this aspect of like his loss of faith, and then he coming back to his faith. And so, though he doesn't think he ever did anything for show, in a sense he probably started doing it, just not realizing it, but then he's now like getting back into this. But the armor piece was always like rooted in his like initial faith of like when he had his faith, that's when he started wearing the armor. And so people can have very strong roots in one belief, but as other things can peter off, but it's easier just to kind of keep going with, like, I started with this armor like 15 years ago or whatever the heck is going on, right? Like 20 years ago and stuff. Like, and so it's easy for when he had that ardor before he became, and even when he was, one of the leaders of Shudareth, that like that's kind of continued. And so when he started this, it definitely wasn't for show. And though he has done things for show, in your sense, reader, not in Kay's sense, that his intentions
I
have
was
always
making a
been to
joke.
try to be very like real to himself. Though we do see that he does a lot of things just kind of to be showy and flashy and not for real. So I think that's kind of like his intention has always been that way, even though he's been kind of led off the path along the way. So I think either way you can still technically work and realize he was a hypocrite for a while, right? His faith was gone and he was doing things that he shouldn't have done, that he knows he shouldn't have done. And now he's kind of this is him realigning. He's like, yeah, this armor's always been like an actual show of my faith. It's never been fake, and now I need to get back to actually showing real faith, which is why I'm now smashing your face in with the gauntlet.
Okay. So Haradin hears a voice calling for him to rest, but he still has work to do. End of point of view. The pyres were ready to be lit, torches were ready, but so was Shuden. With his eyes still closed, the Jindo attacks a monk, slapping him and breaking his neck. Lukel roars and charges too, taking down a soldier and then stealing his blade. POV change. Feel free to interrupt at the end of these. For the first time in a long time, Harathan felt like he was doing the right thing. He may not have been as strong or as fast as the Dakor monks, but his skills surpassed theirs. He kills one, sliding Delof's blade into its heart, but is still kept on the back foot. Serini grabs his shoulder and tells him to follow her, and he does. End of POV. Raoden rises from the pool and realizes the water wasn't watered. Great description there. He looks up at Galadon and Karada's shocked faces and orders them to come with him. End of POV.
I know, it was like, he realized it wasn't water. It was thicker. It's like, okay.
Great.
Thank you for that. It's like, thank you for that. That gave us nothing.
It was syrup. The only ones that joined Lukel and Shuden in the revolt are the women from Sereni's fencing class. However, they had no chance. Shuden falls first, his concentration and dance broken. Then the queen, Eshin, Raoden's stepmother, is killed. Lukel falls last, taken out by a slice to the leg when the soldiers realize he doesn't know how to fight. They leave him and walk back toward the pile of Elantrians.
I did think it was nice that the women actually they did hold their own for a little bit, like helping out like with their fencing skills. Just like yay.
They delayed things a little bit longer,
This
but
is
it
one
showed.
of this is one of the times where I'm like, Brandon wanted something and then worked backwards to it. This feels like something that was worked backwards into the story. Like he
Very
wanted,
possible.
okay, how do I have the women revolt? They know how to sword fight. Okay, but why do they know how to sword fight? Sereni taught them. Why does Sereni teach them? Because all their women learn to fence.
Right, but then he then worked it, if that is the case, which I don't know for sure. I'm not going to say one way or another. If that was the case, after he then said, okay, here's this thing, and we work it backwards. He then took that an idea and said like, he's like, I have this idea, but I also have this idea of a very independent, strong woman. So it makes sense for this woman. Like I have these women that want to like show like women like taking back their liberty and claiming their rightful place kind of amidst the society and showing that they can defend and protect as well. And it kind of really goes along with this independent woman thing that Serene is supposed to be. And so and then incorporating like the sword fighting not just for the women line but right it lets her fight and defend um her husband, right? And lets her fight fight against her husband earlier in the book, right? When he was pretending to be the Duladin, and then fight for her husband in 62. And so I think there's kind of like this theme. If he did do that, he then incorporated it like really smoothly into the rest of the story of like Serene and the sword fighting and like fencing, and then fencing being a Duladin and like stuff like that. And so it like really kind of let it bleed and color out everything. So I don't feel like if that was the case, it doesn't feel like super obvious as just kind of like a standalone piece.
I also
Maybe that's
think
just me.
I also think this is definitely like we know that Sanderson likes to subvert um typical like gender role tropes. We see that in other books that he has. And in this book, I think that is an example of that, where he was like, it would be fun is to have sword fighting be the women's art as opposed to men and have it be frowned upon for men to learn sword fighting, but it's encouraged for the women.
Yeah. This whole end part has some things that, to me, almost feel like they could just be a little bit more satisfying. Like, if with a little bit more setup, like the women fencing was cool. Like, that was a follow up on that, and it was cool to see them have their liberty. And hey, no one else is gonna fight against these guys because no one else knows how to because fencing was. I don't know if it was outlawed, but it certainly wasn't encouraged. But like maybe you put in one detail of like, and because of that, they never made it to Galadon and Karada, or just one little reason like, oh, I'm so glad Serene taught them that. Otherwise, like everything would have all fallen through. I feel like there needs to be just a little bit of criticality to things to make them slightly more satisfying. And some of the stuff in this Sander Lynch doesn't quite hit that. Even like the whole thing with the Navy, was another kind of one of those things.
I think the fact that they are taken care of fairly quickly kind of shows like they were novice. They weren't exactly masters. And even Serene, who is
they've
definitely
only been
really
sword fighting for like 2 months.
And Serene, who we know to be a pretty good fencer, is taken out by Deloff like in 3 seconds later in 62. So like they had no chance. I think what the purpose of is that it stalled for time, and it may not have been the distraction to protect Reoden, but it kept the monks from lighting the fire that would have killed the Elantrians a few seconds more. where if they had done it a few seconds more, Elantris would have actually died.
Right. So maybe just like have a character being like, "Oh my God, they're gonna burn all the Elantrians. Oh my God, all the women are getting up." You know, like just even that, like would be like, "Oh, okay, they're getting this." I'm sorry, I
feel like
ran
it
out
was
of things to say.
I feel like it was just a time stall thing.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
I think Swiggity's just saying that he feels like there wasn't necessarily a reason for them to start fighting at that point in time, and he wishes
Yeah.
that there was a stated reason.
Yeah, I wish it had a slightly more impact.
maybe Eshin like finally is like tries talking and pleading and like it doesn't get her anywhere, so she picks up the sword and like stabs one through. She realizes like, oh, talking so. Wow, that is a horrible message to teach women. Um,
Talking
maybe
won't get you anywhere, so stab the other person to get
yeah.
your point across.
No, just telling women to
To get
shut
your
up and
point
just do stuff.
across.
Um,
That
then
was
maybe
bad.
she realizes that the
I'm a
rambling
dad.
she's
What do
been
you
doing doesn't get her anywhere, so she picks up the sword and then that happens.
I think it also would have been nice if, like, one of the women, like, you had, like, a rallying call or something that, like, to make that probably would have made it more impactful as well. Like, someone was like, okay, let's go. Like, and they, like, got everyone together.
Charge!
Yeah,
Yeah.
something.
If it was K-Ice.
So, the trio of Elantrians were taking the quickest way down to Elantris by nearly jumping off the mountain. And POV. Luckily, the place Sereni picked to hide in had a secret cellar. They, along with a Tio family, wait for the decor to leave. When they do, the duo move to the kitchen where Harathan removes his armor to blend in better. Sereni is surprised that it was real armor and frowns at the sleeve on his arm. She asks him why he betrayed his people, and he says he betrayed Dilaf, not Yada. End of POV. And I feel like that is kind of the whole point of this, is the distinction between God and church. Raoden continues his trek, ignoring the painful stumps that had replaced his legs. He has to keep going, or else he'll go Hoid again. He must make his way between Elantris and Toei. End POV. The extermination begins with torches thrown into the Elantrians and swords turned on. I wrote the Elantrians again, but the Aralonians. End POV.
The Araline?
Aralines. Araloniadidu.ie. Karada questions Raoden's actions as he picks up a large stick, but Galadin, whose hope is renewed, trusts the prince. A squad of Fjordell guards notices Raoden, and Galadin charges forward with Karada, vowing to keep them away from him. POV. It barely even registered to him that his friends were fighting for him. He was completely focused on the ground and using his stick to scrape it away. Raoden knew where it was meant to be, and even when he falls down, the traces he made didn't falter. Galadin and Karada are beaten, but Raoden crawls forward and digs one last mark in the dirt. Then light shines from it and envelops them all. It was the door, and he could feel its warmth. Even better, he couldn't feel any pain.
Ooh.
This is where it gets fun. The light spreads to Toei, its walls shooting light into the heavens. Then it heads north, east, and west to Aito, Kei, and Aki. The four cities shine before their light converges on Elantris, its walls glowing once more. It was an Aeon itself, with Elantris at its center. All it was missing was the chasm line. 1 square, 4 circles. Aeon Rao, the spirit of Elantris. Done.
Beautiful.
With the Aeon... Sorry, what?
I just said beautiful. So beautiful.
It's so beautiful. With the Aeon complete, the Sheod is finally able to finish. Raoden's hair grows white, and his skin turns a metallic silver. His wounds heal, and best of all, his heart begins to beat. He turns to the soldiers and sees Galadin transformed as well. Bright Aeon forms at his fingertips, and he warns them all to flee. I'm just going to keep going. Just as Lukel thinks they will die, the light reaches them. A wave and hurricane of energy fills the area. The Elantrians begin to rise and glow, the flames no longer hurting them. One of the monks tries to run forward, but a flash of energy reduces him to cinders. Raoden lowers his hand and marches to his people. The king was truly back. The remaining monk curses at Raoden, but falls silent when he draws Aeon Da, power. Raoden orders him and his people to run away, and that when the hour is done, he will turn everything Dorethi into a crater. And they do so. They run as fast as they can, and Lukel faints.
Wound.
Huh, from Bloodline.
I mean, nah, he doesn't actually swoon, but still funny.
In Tio, Dilaf ignored his broken nose, allowing its pain to join the screams of his dead wife. Avantio, Sereni, and Horathan still lived, but not for long. His monks were already in the city, and they matched the strength of any army. He would make sure Tiod would fall. Tiod. Can't help it, but I love this scene. I love boot up scenes, I love power up scenes, I love it. And so when you finally have that scratch in the dirt and light just exploding out and literally moving across the Aeon, and I can almost see like an eagle-sized shot as like the camera moves up and you see the light trail across the entire 5 cities. And just as it glows, and then you see the chasm line start to glow, and you're just like, oh my god, it was the chasm line missing all along. Yes. I love this chapter.
I don't know. As far as level up sequences go, as Rita was talking about, I thought this one was pretty
Right.
cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. Like the actual like level up sequences. You know, it kind of shows. You know, it does specifically mention like things kept happening, and and like he kept almost like. He is very careful to like make sure that he like mentioned like he kept his line very like straight, and so it's like. You know kind of like what he's doing, and so it's definitely very exciting for me, like especially like I listened like from 60 through 63 today, basically in like one sitting, in like one go. I didn't really have to like stop at all for anything, and so it's like great to kind of
Yeah.
just like have that piece. It's like we have this like build up, and you're like, oh, you know what's gonna happen, and I feel like anyone that's gonna be reading or listening is. We're in the mid Sanderlands. You're not gonna want to put down your book at like in this point,
In the last
and be like,
4 chapters.
oh, what's he gonna do? He's, falling, and Kirita's head is like flying through the air, and you're like, oh no, it's gonna happen,
There's no good place to stop once the bodies
Which
start burning.
which I do find interesting that it's like there's this like aspect in this piece that is like, Kirita dies, and like in this, but it's like her head is chopped off and she doesn't come back, but like Galadin's stabbed all the way through with 2 swords, and he's immediately just like stands up and like, word, like we're good, and and same with Reread, like he's been stabbed through, and he's just like stumbled down an entire mountainside. So,
With
but
no
also
shoes
it
on.
with no shoes on, right? And it gives like it does get to give you a perspective. Like it took him like my brain's always been like I can't take it. Like he must not be that high up on the mountain. I previously thought this because I used to live on the edge of a mountain, on like kind of the slopes, and I always like imagined like where I was in comparison to where I thought he would be. I'm like, yeah, like he's probably just up a little ways, but he's probably not up that far. But like it does reference like it takes him several he would run down at this it would take him several minutes even running at this perilous speed to get to the bottom. So he is running full on, full pelt, stumbling, all of gravity carrying him, and he does that technically several minutes, which can be 2, 3 to 6, but I feel like when people say that, it could potentially be up to like 5, 10 minutes running down this hill, and he's just like
As a
running down
not
the mountain.
as a not fully transformed Elantrian, so he doesn't have stamina. Like,
Right, that's true.
They talked earlier that they get tired really easily
Mm-hmm.
and really quickly.
Yeah.
Like this mountainside that it took them a while to climb up the first time, where
Yeah,
they
it
like
took
had
them-
to take
took them a-
multiple breaks.
Yeah. So it's not an easy thing. But then you have him like Raiden like coming out glowing shiny skin, hair and everything, and so I love that aspect. It's so, and then his just like take back of the city is great. Although there's kind of the question, because I feel like the power up and Raoden returning, like, he's not in Elantris. He's in fact outside of any of the cities, because he's drawing the chasm line in between the lines of the other cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, how far is he really from? Like, it just like, right? Like, they come back and then immediately
Yeah, there are
the
a lot of
Dakhor monks are like,
questions.
"Ah, I'm gonna kill you," and then immediately he's vaporized, and I'm like, this is within a matter of seconds. So it's like Raoden literally like comes back.
He knows the
Does he then
teleportation,
teleport
Aeon.
himself back, like into Elantris, or is he?
Mm,
Is
I
the chasm line end just happen to be like at the entrance of Elantris?
I don't know. There's a lot of questions
Like, how does
about
that happen timeline
how
wise? It's a little iffy.
it's a little iffy in this section of timeline wise for a number of reasons. First of all is the fact that up from he has to get down from the mountain. They also have to take Raoden up the mountain, which presumably took them because a while, considering the
Yeah.
last time they went up the mountain, I think it took them a couple hours to get there.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Like, so it's like, how long has this been?
Judging
Like,
from the map that has the chasm in it, and using that as a basis for where I'm looking at Aeon Rao, they are fairly close to the southern gate.
yeah.
And which
It's just a question of, like,
geography's never gonna work
Yeah.
in geography.
the geography for this section is kind of weird.
I one time my friends were camping in the White Mountains, and there's this mountain close to me I like to hike often called Mount Monadnock, and it takes you maybe like 2-3 if you're going slow hours to get to the top, and it's awesome. So I was meeting them out there, and I got out there kind of late, like maybe around noon or whatever, and I was thinking I could go to the top of the mountain. And like, you gotta understand, I hike a lot, but it's all in Massachusetts, and nothing is super intense. So I get on this trail, and like, I'm going up the mountain, and it's taken me a long time, but I know that this is my only chance to ever see the top. So I'm like looking at the map, and I'm seeing how it zigzags, because otherwise you're gonna be going almost straight up at some parts. And so I decided to like go off my own and make my own trail. And I'm going, and I'm really trying to get to the top before the sun goes down, and I realize I'm not going to make it. So I've experienced what Raoden experienced in this chapter of bolting down the side of a mountain as fast as humanly possible.
Full tilt.
Literally not caring about getting scratches or just like going completely insane. And I think that by the time he got down there, he was probably ready to become Hoyt again.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he was saying. He was like, he says to himself, he's like, I can't stop because if I stop, I will not be able to get back out
Yeah.
again.
It's almost like pewter dragging, huh?
Awesome.
Next chapter?
Chapter 62. The
Okay.
big one.
So this chapter starts with Serene and Hrathen, who are wandering through the city in their inconspicuous robes, cloaks, and they're asking, and Serene asks him, like, why have you turned against your religion? And this is when he says, like, I thought I had faith. But it turned out, however, the thing that I grew to believe was not Shudirith after all. But he doesn't know what it is that he does believe. Which I just thought was interesting. And he believes in Dirith's teachings, but his problem is with Word, not with God. Which I thought was an interesting distinction.
Kind of what Dragon was saying, like the separation between, or might have been you, reader. Like,
Reader is saying it, but I 100%
Yeah.
agree that this is an interesting message between separation of God and church, or like the people, which is another message, which is people inside of a church are going to be imperfect, and there's going to be things that are going to happen. But if you're following a faith in God, then it's, you know, it seems almost a message like there's something greater than what's being led by people. They can be led by, pretty boys or by evil dictators, but like, where's your faith really? It should be in God, not inside of a church.
Mm-hmm. So, as they're walking through, Hrathen sees someone in the crowd. It's Fionn, who, if we remember, is the priest that he sent back to Fjordell at the very beginning of the book, and he sees Fjorn, and then Fjorn throws a knife at him.
I love that because he like basically sent him away for not being Fjordell enough.
Yeah.
Is this Fjordell enough for you, buddy?
And then listen to Fionn's point of view. You get like a paragraph, right? His point of view is basically like he didn't know who he was gonna kill.
No, he
specifically
did.
because he said he was told to be in the city, but he didn't realize he was going to be killing Hrathen.
So he was told he needed to kill someone. He agreed to kill someone. Then he was told that the someone he had to kill was Hrathen, and that he would find Hrathen in Tiras. In the Teod, the capital of Teod.
It doesn't say how had Wern know that Fionn would find Hrathen here on the streets of Tyros and all places. Fionn would never know. So it's most likely because.
Okay, so he was told. Okay, sorry, I took that as he didn't he was told to go basically go to the city. You'll know who to kill when you see him. But
it could be that way.
But it's like. How did he know he's supposed to kill this person? So he could have been told you will go kill Hrathen inside of Teod and go to the city, and he's like, well, how am I don't know how I'm gonna find him there, and then all of a sudden he's there. Or is it you need to go kill someone, you're gonna go kill a priest, or he's going to look like this. He's going to be bare chested in shorts and a cloak.
Yeah.
And then he sees him and knifes him.
Either way, it's not like this guy was planning it. It was like just fate or some weird twist of irony that he ended up being the one assigned to it, which is awesome.
Well, again, is it fate or is it something more? But we can talk about that when it gets to spoilers.
So, right after Hrathen gets stabbed by the knife, Serene is like, oh god, and then then someone screams because Hrathen is lying in a pool of blood. So they then which draws the monks to them, specifically Dilaf. So then I won't talk about Fjorn because we already talked about him in his section. So
But what did he get for breakfast? That's what I want.
That's and then he's just like, I'm just gonna go back to my little bed and breakfast. Do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yep.
I
Did my
loved it.
job.
I think it's like, I don't know if I should say I love it, but I think it's kind of funny. He's just like,
I find it hilarious.
What a coinky dink.
Well, it's like
I stabbed a dude. I didn't expect him to be here. I wonder
like, the
what I'm
assassination
gonna have, you know? Eggs Benedict, maybe some scrambled eggs and sausage. I don't know.
But like the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, like they threw bombs at his route, missed. They gunned him down someplace else, missed. And then the one assassin was literally just eating at a diner when he pulled up right next to him and he just shot him point blank. So like, that's what I think it's kind of making a reference to. What was that guy having? All dejected that he failed to kill who he was sent, and then the guy just rolls up next to him.
You know? Oh, wait. So we cut back to Raoden. Raoden is with Lukel, and Lukel is being a baby. And he's like, I'm gonna die, just leave me here to die, perish. And Raoden is like, be quiet, like, calm down,
Shut up.
like, stop being dramatic, and just heals him. Lukel
And
is
then
like,
he's like, wait a second.
he's like, wait, you couldn't have left me with a scar? Who's gonna believe me now if I don't have a cool scar to show off?
I think I wanted a scar to show off to my wife and be like, remember how I got this scar?
And Ashy finds Raoden and tells him, because Raoden is like trying to figure out what happened to Sereni. So Ashy finds him and says that she is in Teod, that a Sion spoke to him and told him that she was in Teod.
Quick note,
So-
sorry. They say that he is in Teoros, which is apparently the capital city of Teod. I had to
Yes.
search that because it's never been stated before that Teoros is a thing.
Yeah, it is.
I was very no, it wasn't. We have never seen the word Teoros in this book until now, I don't think. They have
Maybe
always
it's in
referred
the
to it
map?
as Teod. It is in the map. That's how I figured it out. It's on the stupid Kipper flipping map.
Oh, interesting. So, in my copy of the book, it is just referred to as Teod. It is not actually referred to as Tyrus. That is a change for the 10th anniversary edition that you have.
So like Teod is the country, Teoros is the city.
Yes.
I was very confused when I read Teoros, and I was.
I was gonna say, I did like, I'm like, I've never heard that name before, but the one I listened to is not a 10th anniversary version.
It
Yes.
confused me.
I just
Alright.
I need to know what page. I'm gonna go compare my non-10th anniversary edition to my Leatherbound, which is the 10th anniversary edition. Look at them side by side.
Yep. Okay. So we switch back to Sereni, who is now desperately wishing for a weapon that she could use against Dilaf, and he has cornered her. So back, Raoden climbs to the top of the wall, rushes, running at full tilt, I feel like, because he is so worried about Sereni. At least that's how I picture it. He quickly gets to the top of the wall and gets to the edge of the wall, where the northern side of the wall, where he thinks maybe roughly the direction that Teod is in. And he asks the Sion to point him in the exact direction that Tyrus is in, the capital of Teod. And he starts to draw Aeon Taya, which is the Aeon for travel, which, if we remember, is one of the most dangerous Aeons because you could accidentally manifest yourself inside a if you're not careful and kill yourself. if
Perfect
you're not
example of why
careful.
teleportation is a sucky power.
So but Raoden running on ahead. He's like, I have to do it. Galadon is like, what are you doing, you idiot? You don't even know how far it is to get to Teod. Like, you're gonna kill yourself. You have no way to know how far it is to get to Teod. Like, don't die. We'll get a ship, and we'll get on a ship and try to get there as fast as we can. But Rando knows that if they get on a ship, it's gonna be too late. They try to take a ship, it's gonna be too late, 'cause it's gonna take them 4 days to get there by ship.
Maybe I could just use the travel Aeon to get to Dragonsteel Nexus.
Man, I
So-
wish.
Right.
And then Raoden hears a voice behind him say 1,327,042. And it's Adian, who is an Elantrian, who is now an Elantrian. And he knows the exact number of steps it would take you to get to Tyrus, to get to Teod.
Yeah.
And so he tells Raoden to measure his stride and divide it by 2 and use that as his form of measurement, or as his frame of reference to get to Teod. And he tells him the exact number of steps that he needs to put in there. And Ashy points him in the exact direction he needs to go, and Raoden goes, even though Galadon is yelling at him and telling him he's an idiot.
As
Raoden
always.
ignores him and just goes because he wants to try to rescue Sereni. And he says a little prayer before he grabs the Aeon and just he's like, please let this work. Please don't kill me. So Sereni is cornered by the Decor monks and Dilaf. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, there's a spray of light that crashes into one of the monks. And it is Raoden. He has used his powers. He has made it. He is drawing Aeons, whipping out, and causing all this kinds of surprise. And he draws Aeon Taya again to try to get them back to Elantris. But it doesn't work because he forgot a key note in the book, one of the books that he read, that says the farther away from Elantris you get, the less powerful the Aeons will be.
Mhm.
So he
So they're
cannot
stuck.
get back to Elantris via Aeon.
That's good though, because they had some unfinished business in that country. Like if they could have just warped back, that wouldn't have really been as good, right? Because Dilaf still would have tried to like destroy Teod.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives a well-needed limiter on the Elantrians, because we saw him literally reduce one of the monks, one of the toughest things we've seen in this story, just atomized in like a single Aeon.
Yeah.
It provides a needed balance effect.
Right. I've been thinking about that a lot. Like the Aeons could be so powerful. You know, they just have so much potential in them.
But like, so my question is 50 feet all that he could do from that point, or was it only able to do a percentage of what he wanted to do?
I would guess it was only a percentage of what he wanted to do.
As long as he keeps doing that and they keep getting closer, the Aeons will keep getting stronger.
But that would require them to end up in the middle of the ocean, not on a boat.
So? Hopefully they can swim. You just paddle. Okay, hold on.
We don't know that they
there
can
was-
swim. They might not be able to swim. Also,
definitely
in the
know
middle
Raoden
of an
can.
ocean while trying to draw with your hand?
There was this. Oh shoot! What was the show? think it was X-Men Evolutions. No, it wasn't Evolutions. It was like Wolverine the X-Men, where you guys know Nightcrawler?
Yeah.
He literally teleports from Genosa to Professor X, literally by just teleporting over the ocean. The 20-something on feet. Bamf, teleport. Bamf, teleport. Tamf, teleport. They could seriously just do that, and the closer they get to Elantrian...
But they need to draw.
Yeah, you can just hold it above his head. It's not that... It doesn't seem that difficult.
They need to draw and then touch the Aeon.
His head, grab the thing, and whoop-de-doo.
But if you're falling...
There's gotta be a better way.
I'm viewing
Okay.
this as somebody who's
Alright.
not in the heat of battle and trying to, like, immediately... You got D-Loft breathing down your neck.
Okay,
That's why I
we're gonna
hate
keep...
his shape.
We're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going. So, they try to run away, but D-Lov is closing in. But D-Lov doesn't attack immediately. He kind of is standing there, and he is waiting
Menacingly.
for... Suddenly, the rest of the monks come out from different alleyways, and all 50 of the Decor monks are standing there. And it's only Randon and Serini.
Came to the wrong neighborhood.
And then, suddenly, as the monks start to come in to attack, Randon is able to take out a couple of them. And then a powerful force hits, and suddenly there are 200 Elantrians standing on the docks. And Galadon is out front, and he shouts, and he's like a sergeant with his army, and he's like, Aeon,
Da.
da!
Day.
They scroll their Aeons. Half of them mess up, but half of them are able to work, and they wipe out a bunch of the monks. Not all of them, but a good number of them. And so the monks turn around and go to fight the Elantrians, and leaving Raoden and Serini alone. Except for Dilaf, who is still there and still alive because he thought to duck. The
Also-
only one who thought to duck.
Okay, but like he's like the only one who didn't need to duck too, considering
True.
he has the anti-Aeon
Yeah.
power.
And he decides that the best way, because he could still get Raoden and Serini, and the best way to do that is to lure them away into a trap. So he goes down the alleyway they had previously seen. He had spotted Eventio go down earlier. So Serini notices him do this, and she runs after, and she's like, Randon, that's the way my father went. So they run after them, and Raoden runs on ahead because he's faster. And he immediately goes around the corner, and he gets whapped by Dilaf into the wall. And Raoden is struggling against Dilaf. Dilaf has his sword out, and he's attacking Raoden with his sword, and Raoden doesn't have any weapons other than the Aeons, so he's trying to draw the Aeons to attack, but Dilaf hits one of his arms, so he's down an arm. Only has one arm left. He draws an Aeon and creates a wall, a wall of energy. Yeah. He creates a wall of energy to block, but he forgot that Dilaf can negate his Aeons. Then, before he can do anything, Dilaf swings his sword at him again and hits his hand. His other hand this time. So now Raoden is out of his hands. He can't draw anymore. Luckily, Serini comes in and has her sword, and she starts attacking Dilaf, and she's doing well for the first bit. I think
First
Dilaf
bit
is
was second.
for the first bit, she's doing pretty well. She's, she forces Dilaf on the defensive for a little while, but then he turns it around because he's faster than she is. He's stronger than she is. So he is able to score a hit on her and cause her to drop her weapon. And so then that's it. They don't have anything else, so they're holding each other on the ground, and then Rayoden sees someone behind Dilaf in the alleyway. And it is Wraithen. Dilaf swings his sword at Wraithen. Arm comes up and blocks it. And you can see that his arm has the weird patterns that the Decor monks have on their bones as well.
Important to note that at this point, Rayoden does not know Harathan switch sides.
Yes, Rayoden does not know. He just thinks Wraithen is here to help Dilaf, and is very surprised when Dilaf then attacks Wraithen. And so Wraithen is able to grab Dilaf by the neck and lift him up using the last of his energy. His arm starts glowing and he's like radiating power, and he's able to snap Dilaf's neck and kill him. And he throws Dilaf to the ground, and then he collapses as well, dead. That was the last of his energy that he had.
No.
So Galadon arrives a few moments later, and he heals Rayoden's arm, and Rayoden is then able to heal Sereni as well. And Galadon, of course, is like, you were such an idiot, Rayoden. Like, why would you do that? And Galadon is like, and Rayoden's like, well, you did it as well. And Galadon, we had Ash call ahead to make sure your dumbass made it. Like, alive. Like, we weren't gonna follow you without knowing that you survived or not.
So smart,
And
though.
that's where the chapter ends.
Okay. I got it. So going back to the beginning, I feel with the knowledge I have gained from reading books and watching shows, wearing nondescript cloaks when trying to hide is automatically suspicious.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be
Don't be
suspicious.
suspicious.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
I mean, Telri was doing that earlier, right?
Yeah. I'm kind of upset Ayin didn't show up immediately. I feel like to have Ayin show up instead of Ashy would have been a lot more interesting, because then you could have had him be like, my Aeon is alive, and it came to me because it was connected to me.
Well, but we know that the Seons are connected to their people, but they can't sense where their people are.
Yes, but this is an Elantrian with a Seon. That is a different...
So...
Did Ayin come back? I don't remember.
He
yes,
shows up in the chapter 63.
In the next chapter he shows up.
Okay. Well, that's cool, because that was pretty heartbreaking, like, the Seon, going mad and all that.
So, for the travel Aeon, do you think they need to calculate, like, the curvature of the planet?
Probably.
I like to
But
think
I wonder
not.
if it's built into the Aeon.
I don't think it would. I think if you're doing something over a long distance where you have to include... Because, like, in game design, you have to basically, you can do it either, you can make a player move either by just teleporting them left, right, up, down, forward, backwards, or you can program the game to have gravity and resistance and movement. And I feel like in small distances, you can just say, teleport me 5 feet forward, bam. But in long distance, you have to calculate like gravity, the curvature. I don't know what else, but
Wouldn't be too hard, would it? I mean, because I guess you're essentially just needing to put in a ratio, right? The longer I go this distance, the more you need to move me down.
yeah. I'm just saying. I think it's in the, what do they call them?
That's super interesting to think about. It kind of reminds me of like when you think about how time travel works. Like if you went back in time, you'd also have to go in space pretty far, depending on how far you went, because the Earth is always moving like around the sun, and the sun's always moving in the universe.
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't like Adain's autism being healed. I really don't like that.
Yeah, but that is one thing even Brandon has talked about. He thought he got that wrong. What about Harithan's one arm? Like, I'm wondering how the decor works. Like, we know there's sacrifices that give people power. So, does that mean that at least one or a few people had to die for that arm to be put on Harithan?
Well, that's what's weird is we know Harathan left fairly quickly.
So he was
And-
there for
What was it, 3 weeks?
about a month, I think.
But what's even weirder is the fact that Deloff didn't know about it, and you think that he would have been there for any sacrifices to turn people into magic powers.
Yeah, that is weird. And we'll never know because now Harithan's kind of gone.
Yeah, and also like you would think they would want to do the test of character be giving somebody magic powers. So I kind of think Harathan did this afterward somehow.
Oh,
I don't
after
know
he ran
how.
away?
Yeah,
Interesting.
I don't know.
oh,
Also, we don't know enough about the decor monasteries and how they get their powers, because they could very well like get their powers from like in a different way. Like they might not have to sacrifice another monk in order to start the process to become a monk, to become a decor. It might be that in order to get more powerful like things, you have to do the sacrifices, because we know that people had to be sacrificed for Deloff's ability to
Yeah.
to
negate aeons.
negate a no to be resistant to aeons.
Yeah,
tend
he
to-
did say 50 people.
Yeah.
I tend to resist the idea he got the arm after, because I just think him being so freaked out by decor, like by the time he left, I think he would have been so done with anything to do with them.
He also, I believe, mentioned that like just being in the place seemed to change the body. So it's like, like it could be a radiation thing where magic is like morphing the body into what they want you. But again,
Yeah.
he was
And
only
it-
there for like a month.
But and it could be like similar to, we know that for Elantrians, like it's random who gets chosen to be an Elantrian. So it could be a sense of just like you're saying, being in the place, like has that radiation that starts to turn you into the decor.
the decor is so
Elantris,
weird. Sorry.
You're fine.
It just feels like the decor is brute forcing people to have these abilities, like even like the ability to resist the door. 50 people had to be sacrificed. Like, you know, without going into too much details, I'm just thinking that is like a lot of power. Like, there's other things you can do in the Cosmere that don't require as much power. You know, so this whole decor, it's like super unnatural, and it feels like it feels like it could be a location based thing too, because that's how the door works.
Entrance bleeds silver white blood. I thought that was cool.
That is cool, like the unicorns in Harry Potter.
Yep. They mention the Skazy here. We don't know what those are.
Yes. We do not
Isn't-
know.
Isn't that the weird?
We do not know what they are.
We do not know what they are.
Swiggity.
As
Isn't
of
that
this
weird
point
word
in the
we don't
story,
know? Huh.
and another question is, why does Horathan's arm glow? Is that just him using power?
He's channeling the power, yeah. It's
Okay.
him using the power. That's how he's able to lift D-Lop up off the ground and snap his neck. Because
I just-
D-Lop's bones are strong. Are super
I just
strong.
wasn't
so he
remember
wouldn't be
any
able to.
point where any of the other monks'
Yes, it's
limbs
mentioned
glowed.
that they glow. When, for example, when they transport to Teode, it's mentioned that their limbs glow.
Yeah. Okay.
When they are
My last
actively channeling the power, their limbs glow.
question is, did Raoden even try to heal Horathan, or was he just like, oh no, he's dead. There's nothing we can do for him.
I mean, he probably checked on him because Raoden is a nice guy, so I would
Nudged
be
his leg with his
surprised
boot.
if he didn't check on him, to see if he was like still alive
Puts
or
his
not.
hand over his mouth, he feels breathing and just like pushes down. He's dead. Oh no. Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. He's dead.
Sorry, I paused because that happens in a Joe Abercrombie book.
Okay. Anything left for this chapter?
Perfect. So in chapter 33, really honestly super short, but also like lots of little fun banter, but also really informative, I think, as well. So I love it's just like, okay, we're there, like next marriage, third marriage, round 3, fight, you know.
Yeah,
This
we're
time
in the
she's gonna get
sandwich
a
now.
KO, I promise.
I love that she's just like holding on to him, and she's like, "I won't
Yeah, she's
let
like-
you go.
like-
You're
It's like,
not
I'm
going
not
just
letting
like
this
go
one out of my
pray
sight.
and like go do all this stuff, and she's like, I ain't going nowhere.
She's like, you are not leaving my sight until we are at the altar and we are finished with our marriage."
Bonesaw
That,
he's
is
that line
ready.
that I just said makes me think of Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas. He's like, and you ain't going nowhere. Like,
Really?
that's like what's going on in Serene's head. She's like, you are captured. You are stake. You are stuck with me. Anyway, so I think that's super hilarious. But then it's just like you can just get Raoden's thoughts, just like wee, like off in the nethers. But again, he's going over again. I think it's also like so short, but it's really exciting because he's now recollecting. Right, we have the Che Shan. Like he's like kind of him expanding on like Aeon Door is not just an Elantris thing, right? He's now like thinking about like, right, we've seen now the Dahor monks, right, and they found pieces of bone, and he found, he recognized from his studies ancient, you know, what's
Fjordell.
the Fjordell, yeah, ancient Fjordell symbols that he recognized, and so he's like, the thing that's always kept them safe, right, is like Elantris and Aondor, but now the most dangerous group has figured out how to like channel it and use it, which makes you wonder like how recent the Dahor monks development really is, or has it already always been there and they've just never known that? And Elantris has always previously just been combating it, because we know it's been around for longer than because it's only been 10 years since the Elantrians lost power, and
We know
he's
it's
been
been
around
at least
at least
70 years because
and
that's
right.
how old Dilaf is.
Right. But and he could have been one of the first, and they do that when they're young in like the 8 to 10 range. So it could be a minimum of 60 is what we could say, probably safely. But the likelihood is it's probably been around for longer. But again, the question is like, how long has it really been around? And you don't know. We don't know. We don't find out. But he's like, this has been the thing that's like kept us safe is we have access to the door and they don't. But really, they've had access for a lot longer than he realizes. But they've finally been able to enact some of their plan about it. And then you also have him thinking about the stories, like even Lucal talking about, right, the Che Shan and how, sorry, my brain, I don't know, I forgot the name again. Who performs the Che Shan? Shuden, thank you.
Shuden.
Sorry. Like all names are like gone from my brain.
No worries.
Shuden performs the Che Shan, and right, he is glowing, and B he like snaps ahead, literally just like clean around of someone that's been like super reinforced by the door. So we kind of get this like musings of what's happening really.
Yeah, that
So
was
I'm kind of curious for you guys. Sorry, go ahead, Dan. I was just going to ask you a question. Like, what are your thoughts about that?
well, just like a small peek into something I hope we learn more about in the future. Like, really, the only things we can say about it, I think, are that it appears to make you stronger, maybe faster, and it seems like you activate it by doing certain hand movements. Is there anything I missed? I mean, that's all we know, right?
All we got.
Yeah.
Some sort of dance. He does stuff with his hand, but he does stuff with his whole body. I think we'll dive in deeper, and like I know there isn't honestly anything spoiler wise really around like what we have or haven't learned. That's like in this in this part. It's we know it's like location based. It's kind of terrain based and symbol based. So are they kind of like striking almost in a sense like Aeon symbols with their body, but based from like their home country? Right? Is he able to like? Is that kind of what they're doing? Is like striking these symbols with their body, and so they're able to channel through them. He's like, Aeon Rayo, kind of type of situation. Like, but it's like their own version of that, and so they're like incorporating these basic principles, like with their bodies. Is it more of reading them with their mind? We don't know. We never get that, but just an
But
interesting.
I guess we do
thing to think about.
know that Shuden is Jindo, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
his Jindoese.
So then the Cheishan might be that it's like older than we're giving it credit for, right? Because like if I'm remembering it was a Jindo who like came up with Shudarith and Shu Korath, right?
So
Yes, but that-
Shukesig is the
Shukesig,
original
sorry.
line.
But
that
that
where
doesn't
Shudora
necessarily
and
tie into the
Shukorath.
door and Aeons.
Not necessarily, but the point is they had a religion that's been around longer. So the Jindoese is an ancient culture, right? I
So-
think is what you're
Yeah.
getting at, Daniel. Is like
Right.
Jindoese, like the Jindoese is, and the Jindo culture is a very ancient culture.
Like
And
it could be
so-
an even older version of it, like where you couldn't do as much. But
So yeah, we have no idea how long that's been around. It's probably been hundreds, if not thousands of years that this type of thing has been around. Because generally things like martial arts or specific practices usually are passed down like for thousands of years. They're not like, oh, let me just come up with this brand new creation kind of a thing.
I guess it's too like, as a Cosmere fan, whenever you see like a new magic system of any kind, you just want to like know as much as you can about it, because we have so much on like the ones that have time spent on them.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So, then, of course, he's just like distracted, and Serene brings him back, and you've got Brandon Sanderson's first vague reference to spiciness, and about as far as you get in most of his books. So, Serene's laughter, like line about like, oh yeah, and like what I've been looking forward to more than getting married is my wedding night, and you're like, and he's like, oh, what have we done? Bringing this, this Jewish princess here, but at the same time, he's probably like, oh my goodness, what did she have in mind for me?
Well, there does need to be an heir.
Sure does. Anyway, so
I don't know. I was thinking
fun chapter for sure.
Like maybe that was, maybe if not that, if that was anything more than just like a fun like line to have in the book. Like maybe that was trying to wrap up that.
I think it was just that, just a fun little line.
More than likely, yeah.
Well, it just shows you Serene knows exactly what she wants and what she's gonna go for. So
she's gonna go for what she wants always.
Yeah.
And she usually gets it.
Yep.
She always gets what she wants. So
Anything else for this chapter set? Okay. Well, next time we're going to be finishing the book, so that'll include our ranking and favorite moments and favorite characters, but it's going to also include the epilogue, the Ars Arcanum, the Aeons, and possibly the short little Hoyd story, if I can figure out a way to get it online. If that may be the first thing we cover in the spoiler section, though. But it is time to head into the spoiler realm. So if you have not finished this book, the entire series, or potentially the entire Cosmere, then we recommend that you stop here, because it is likely that we will talk about everything and anything. Although this is the end of the book, so good luck with that. If you're up to date, feel free to stick around, because it is likely that we'll bring up details you may have missed. There are no more plot threads still yet to come. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, or whatever it is on this podcast, and don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions. You can find us at CosmereConnectionsPod@gmail.com, at CConnectionsPod on Twitter, and we even have our own Facebook group. We would love to hear from you. But if this is where we must part, then my name is ReaderWarrior, and I have been joined by Swiggity Swoo.
I never podcast for show.
Dragon.
Don't forget to practice your Aeons.
And last but not least, Kay.
Have a good one.
And don't forget, there's always another connection. And we're back. Spoilers.
Also, just side note, reader, I want to point out the fact that we do have plot threads that are yet to come, because there are still things that we don't know about.
Nothing we can talk about that. I mean,
It's
yeah, we can.
confirmed.
Yeah,
I just
everything
wanted
is
to
guesswork
say,
at this point.
like, now that there's no more book, like, we can still talk about plot threads that haven't been resolved.
I do like that. It's like, if you finish it, we'll talk about the rest of this book or the rest of the series.
There's no plot threads to come. There's dangling plot threads that still have not been unraveled.
Right.
I guess. Okay. Okay, we can go
Okay.
ahead and...
Chapter 60. So we see that Galadin really does care, and they are not, in fact, the last two Elantrians. There's Dashi and the children, and Aideen. Cain disappears.
We've got all the children, which again, like the whole timeline thing feels a bit weird, because like Galadin shows up and like when they go with the Karita from the library to New Elantris, everyone's already slaughtered. So that means like the whole thing with like the kids leading around, like it feels like it's really really short, but it's like apparently they must have been leading them on for hours or something. Because like
Yeah,
her and the kids escape right as the slaughtering starts happening, and
yeah,
then it's literally like, oh, they're like escaping. Then it's like, oh no, there's these two guys that are following us. And then it's like,
This
quickly
is
put
an
out the light,
argument.
and like I'll turn on my light, and you guys go this way, and I'll go this way, and then she gets chased, but supposedly for hours because it's like wee hours of the morning, and Galadin has time to come back, see everyone that's dead, then walk his little weak butt over to try to go find Reread, find him, watch the whole exchange where he gets stabbed, pick him up, carry him up the mountain,
haul him
get up
his
to the
ass
top of the
up
mountain,
the mountain with his
Remember
wings
chuck
Hope of
him in the
in the
Elantris
water,
water.
enough to argue this. I don't remember it at all. I
chuck
don't
him in the
remember it.
water, pull him out of the water, then run down the hill as it's turning dawn, and then for him to draw the line. Oh, excuse me. So, like, Hope of Elantris is literally like, oh, hey, let's put these kids to sleep. Boom. Ah! I hear screaming. We're gonna die soon. Like, let's get these kids out of here. And so it's like they go and start leaving the kids, and they're immediately chased as they're leaving New Elantris. They're immediately chased by soldiers. And so the way they escape is the lead kid, lady, gal, whatever her name is, can't remember, like puts out her light. They're like, oh, put out the lights, walk a distance, and then have the kids go this way, and she opens up her lampshade again, and so that way, the two soldiers chase her instead. But that happens right at the beginning of the attack.
Okay, no, we have not read it in recent enough to argue.
I know, but
Yeah.
it's just like I'm like his time. Again, this is his first book.
Barely
His
remember the things
timelines
in
are
this
very. His times
Yeah.
are a bit choppy.
We
this
did
book.
also, while you were gone,
So.
we also had that extensive talk about how the timelines make no sense for the Standard Line. We
Yeah,
did the whole
I
mountain thing.
we like started a little bit before I left and had to come back, but like this is yet another just kind of like. And
Yeah.
Help of Elantris is just
Yeah.
a fun, cute little throw-in book that he did for like that student, which I think was cute. But it's like,
Mhm.
yeah,
This is also the last time we see Cain for the rest of the book. We see him get tied up and thrown into a cart and vanish. That's it. Maybe
Wait,
he
really?
got saved. Maybe he gets taken someplace to be experimented on. No clue. Literally do not see him after this point of view.
right.
That's kind of cool. I would like to see where that goes if that thread gets picked up.
Me too, but most likely.
I doubt we're ever gonna see Kayan again. However, if we do have a perspective of Kais, his daughter,
We
in
might see
books
him
2 and
in
3, which is supposedly one of the POVs that we might get, rumored,
Yep.
right? Then she may then reflect on what happened to her father during she may be like, oh, like one of her recollections would be like, I remember when my father was like knocked out and then his throat was,
Or
cut
it
or
starts
something.
out,
Or but
she's
but
like
I
old and
feel like
badass, and
it
she's trying to
seems
like
right,
break him out
but
of a
it seems
Fjordell prison.
pretty
Yeah, I would like that
like
a lot more.
That'd be cool.
Okay.
she still seems pretty carefree, and when we see her in the Lost Muddle, so
Okay, so remember we're trying to be short.
sorry.
How does the transportation thing? They say it burns away the body and the soul.
That's what he says.
That's what he says. I'm assuming it's just doing. Do we actually think it burns away the soul, or is it just using up all the investiture in a person?
I think it is using up all of the investiture in a person. I don't think it is actually burning the soul.
Okay. Because we've
I
seen
think
that
it's burning
the
their
soul.
body and their innate investiture, because like every person has innate investiture, and
Mhm.
then they've been somehow imbued with more using the symbols. They like channel more investiture, so they're kind of also probably like, like people are like little water beads, but like through this deformation of their body. Their body's been like it's like a little like water balloon versus like someone that's been like stretched and filled, and so they probably naturally have a lot more investiture stored in their body, and so burning their body and their investiture is going to get a lot more than if they found a way to, because they can't sacrifice. They have to sacrifice a monk. They can't just like take a random stranger and like throw them in the middle and like kill them, right? So they have to have that expanded investiture store. But yeah, their soul or their spirit probably could be seen on the other side, crossing into the beyond or whatever.
I like that idea because it seems like just tying it into like Warbreaker, like I think one breath wouldn't be enough to teleport you. It just doesn't seem like enough strength at all.
There's no way. No way.
So would somebody with a lot of investiture be able to survive and not get burned away?
I feel like you'd have to have a great amount, but I feel like the ritual is made to use up. Like it's like just like popping the balloon and gathering whatever comes out. So I feel like someone with
it's not
let's say it's 100
the power.
BEUs versus is what's needed to transfer versus someone with 1,000 BEUs. I feel like they're just popping the bubble and then grabbing what they need, and if there's excess, it's just gonna. That's my thought on it. But
that makes sense.
I like that.
Tane is definitely dead. We see him with his head broken, and if you take out the brain, there's no recovery. Taeon has been added to the list of lost characters.
Taeon?
Taeon.
The
carver.
Sculptor? No. No,
what
he's
was
still
his
alive.
description?
He's still alive.
Something. His skull was crushed.
But we know he is still alive because Raoden makes a comment that he is the one who carves Serene's pendant that he gives her for their wedding.
So having it crushed, but the skull, the brain's still in the skull, which means that because when the healing finishes on their body, as long as all the pieces are still in place, they'll get it back. Versus Keireta, or Karada, or Rete, however you want to pronounce it, her head is separated, so when the healing happens, her head is put back to a full Elantris head, but since there's now no circulation, she just immediately bleeds out and dies. So my theory would be is if she has her head chopped off, before like when they're all like finishing their transformation light, if Galadin had somehow like grabbed her head and like stuck it back onto her neck, then the transformation had happened, I think she would have lived. Personally, because people actually live a little while longer after their head chops off because their heart keeps on pumping, even though their heart's not pumping. So it doesn't really even matter. As long as the head's put back on, I feel like that would like heal together. But,
so something. If you don't do it fast enough, cognitive shadow. I don't know.
Yeah, some cognitive shadow, mumble.
I get that. Because it reminds me of the Lord Ruler, right? They were talking about him getting decapitated and growing it back. It's like,
which would not work because his head is no longer attached to his metal mind, so that would not work.
Debatably, but probably not a debate for today.
I know, right?
So Shuden does karate in the background. Raod, and we learned that Raoden, as well as the other Hoid, could choose to feel, but have blocked that off so they don't have to.
You know, hey, do you guys remember like the Power Rangers thing? They like strike a pose and it like shows a symbol behind them.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally what Shuden's doing.
Yes.
Each symbol has to like do power, and so he's like strike a pose, and it's like symbol, and it's like now I've got more power.
I've got one for this chapter.
I am a Cosmere Ranger. Okay, go ahead.
So, just like a loose connection of what I was talking about before, like with the bird's eye view of the city. The mountain explanation does kind of throw me off, but of what I was talking about, like this idea that maybe these people had access to, it sends you thinking all kinds of ways. Like maybe they're from another planet, maybe they can fly. I don't know, but So the idea of thinking of a city like from a bird's eye view got me thinking about, and I'll try to get through this as quick as I can because I don't want us to go on a huge tangent. But like the cities in Stormlight that are super symmetrical
Ooh,
and made
yes.
to look like what's it called when you vibrate sand?
I don't know the specific term, but those, yes.
Like, do you think there's some kind of connection between that?
No.
Also,
Well,
lasting integrity is like a square.
That's
I think way of the Roshars just they built their cities to be symmetrical because Rosharans are weird.
no, but they didn't. They didn't because they built them around the natural formations already there.
That were
Right. So
caused
so there's
by
so there's an
this.
aspect
Yeah.
of like natural formations in the land affecting the cities that are built. However, I mean,
Pretty
I
sure
don't
on
think that they're
Elantris it's
that
just
it's pretty self, and it seems like it's not like people came from Rothar to become then Elantrians who then build the city. Like Elantrians are established, and Elantris is you need to have a spiritual tie to the world. So unless they also came to then this planet, and then which like they didn't, they went from Ash, to
pretty sure Elantris the city was just made because
Roshar.
they knew, oh, if we do this Aeon, it'll increase our power or allow us to do
Right.
whatever the heck it specifically wants them to do, be it transforming them or whatever that Aeon
Right.
does. And so they made a blueprint, and they basically knew we need to build it this size. I think it's
Right.
just amazing, and I think it's just good
Architecture.
architecture, not archaeology.
Yeah.
Architecture.
But you're saying that the cities were built off the land formations and not.
Yep.
It wasn't like
Yeah.
a decision.
On Roshar.
Yeah.
So so Roshar is
Right.
there was
on
land
Roshar.
masses, and they built the cities using them. And then on Elantris and on Cell, we have people like the power that is raging comes through and makes people Elantrians. And then whomever that is, those Elantrians then started figuring out, and probably I think we've had a little bit of discussion about this referenced earlier in like one of the previous times that I've been on. Likelihood is they saw the Seons, which are splinters, and thus existed during or before Elandrians did, and they probably saw the symbols and then tried to draw them, and then those symbols started creating power. And so then they started figuring out, hey, these symbols, which is part of the Seons, which came from the splintering of devotion, right, came out, and so they're like, oh, now we've got Elantrians with power, seeing Seons. Now they use that, and then they had to extrapolate from there. Hey, this land, like our power is stronger when we're inside of Erelon. Well, why is that? Because they're probably just walking around, traveling around. They're like, hey, these aeons, like I saw this symbol of Deo, and it shoots out this bolt of power.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
I saw it floating in a
Makes.
Seon. And
Yeah.
then they figured out like the landmass, and they're like, oh, now if we build this thing, then this channels our power, and then this makes it super strong.
That makes perfect
So-
sense to me. The only last thing I want to say about it is, it might be cool if you could channel the door to one of those cities using cymatics to recreate the symbol.
That would be pretty cool.
So we got Delof monologuing. If Delof's wife had become an Elantrin, would he still love her?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. She could make them snacks out of nothing. She could that'd be great. He might convert.
Oh, wait. You could have a perpetual snack machine. So you get a snack that's in a wrapper, right? They said they turn garbage into food. So you open that up, you eat the snack, and you turn your wrapper into a piece of food with a wrapper.
Ask
Then you
a yes
open
or
up
no
the wrapper
question
and you eat the
about
food, and
love,
then you turn
and
the
it turns
wrapper
into
in.
this.
And the whole
I
conservation
regret
of
everything.
energy. The whole I have an endless supply of almond joy, and I regret nothing.
Tap the mute button. That is my Aeon.
Ooh, peanut butter M&Ms.
You do peanut butter.
I have the mute button, Swiggity. I will
And all
go
you have to
mad
do
with
is then
power.
you just rip up your wrapper into like a bunch of little tiny pieces, and then each of those becomes, Anyway, I'm just saying.
So are you picturing
And
like an alternate version where they fix her and he ends up hating Elantrians more because she just like gets super popular and has all these friends now and like
Picturing, what if like they did what is the term? Invitation? No. Induction. And they turn her into an Elantrian.
indoctrination?
And I think the term is induction.
well, she was just
Oh.
going to be healed, so she wouldn't become an Elantrian.
Initiation.
So it's only if she was chosen by the door to become an Elantrian. So if she was chosen by the door,
Oh right.
I think, and she then lived the entire time, he may never be able to get himself to go and attack Elantris because she is there, or he would try to like run away with me, and then I can come back and destroy your home.
We also
And
it's
all
not
your
just the door,
friends.
because we know that Elantrians themselves can initiate you into the Elantrian cult. As
Well, they
evidenced
can.
by
Yes, you
what's
need
her
an
face
invitation,
in
but you
Trust.
also need a heck of a lot more than just an invitation. We only learn, and we do learn that from Frass, but it's not just like become an Elantrian, right? But like
Yeah.
Hoyt says, all you need is like an invitation and someone crazy enough to invite you. But he also probably did a whole heck of a lot of like prep beforehand as well to give himself
Yes.
enough of, because he needs to connect his body enough to Cell or to someone that
On
is
a
on
different
Cell.
planet.
Right, but he's connecting himself
That is
in
an
a
argument
sense
for
to their
Tress.
spirit web.
This is an argument for Tress. Think Aeon that Galadin lay Raoden at the right angles, see Elantris as an Aeon. Adain is an Elantrian. Hrathen left because he didn't like how they were using his faith. The language of the Tikor is different from Fjordish. There are no Serene POVs in this entire chapter. It's a perpendicularity. Oops. Anything for 60. These are how my notes go when I...
It said nothing else, and that you've cut me off twice. I'm just kidding. We're good.
I'm trying to keep us focused on this when Kay has to leave in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. 61. So, Hrathen punches Deloff in the face.
Quality.
Raoden, very quality. Raoden hears a voice. So this is where I'm starting to think that maybe the Aeon, the door, Aeona's devotions investiture has gained a sentience. Either that or this was Brandon not really preparing to write what he was going to write.
It might just be him not preparing for
What
he
is
was
this
going
piece
to
about
write.
about the voice?
When
I
Raoden
don't
falls
remember this.
into the perpendicularity, there's a voice that says, "Come with me, I will ease your pain. All you have to do is let go." And Raoden's like, "No." That's pretty much it.
Right. No, now I remember that piece.
There is the mindset that when Brandon wrote this, it wasn't a perpendicularity. It was just
Correct.
It was a pool that if you stepped into it, you could give up.
Yeah, he wanted it to be something else, and he knew there was something, but it's true, he didn't have perpendicularities specifically in mind.
So I'm wondering if it can just be... Sorry.
When you die
Go ahead.
on Scadrial in Era 2, say, I guess in Era 1, I guess what I'm trying to say is the shard comes to talk to you. Like, there's a minute before you really pass on and the shard comes to talk to you. Is somebody still doing that job on Cell?
Well, Sazed says he specifically does that. I think that's more Sazed, not just duty shards have to do. Because we also know that sometimes he has Marsh do it, Moash do it. Marsh. Fudge! I'm tired!
So he
One of
does
the
have
M's
Marsh
that
do
ends with
that.
Osh.
He does sometimes have Marsh do it, but we also do see that Preservation does this as well. And so there
Think of
is
other
a
examples.
possibility that Devotion, and remember, these are like, and Preservation's already like so shattered and destroyed and like pulled apart at this point, and he only has a little bit of himself left. So there's a possibility that, again, to reference something from Roshar's, like, if you leave power alone long enough, it simply gains sentience. The power of Devotion has been raging for so long in the cognitive realm, but it's been
Devotion
left
and
alone.
Dominion.
Devotion and Dominion. So it's been, but its point is that it's been left alone for thousands of years before Odium came to Roshar, which was 6,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's why I
7,000?
think it's gotten
6,000,
sentience now.
7,000? Right? And so it could have just like recoalesced some sort of sentience or kept some tiny shred of sentience that it could have been pulling it as an excuse for the fact that he probably didn't have anything planned, and that's likely what it is, but it's a great excuse.
Be right. Okay. So Shuden goes on his attack. I'm wondering if he has his eyes closed so that way he can see just the souls of the people he's attacking. Like he's seeing
Good idea.
through into the cognitive or spiritual.
He might
Uh,
be.
I didn't think about that.
And Brandon has a thing about characters slapping a character and just breaking their necks. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time Brandon wrote a character that did that, I would have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
I want that animated, that whole string of what you just said.
But Raider is animated like Doofenshmirtz.
Doofenshmirtz, yep.
Okay.
He's got to have Doofenshmirtz with the little
nickel
hat,
for
with the
every
little
time.
pom pom on top.
I don't
Yep.
have to.
A nickel for every time a Cosmere character slapped a Cosmere character and it broke their neck. I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Ah, hey, look at the boss. How unexpected, and by unexpected I mean completely unexpected! I wanted to be a voice actor as a kid. So Harathan kills one of the monks and runs away. Raoden escapes from the pool. Lukel,
Right.
shoot-ins, rebellion fails pretty quickly. The Elantrians run down the mountain. Harathan gets rid of his armor. Nice little metaphor there. Raoden, makes it to the bottom of the hill.
Him officially leaving the
Yeah,
church
okay.
and separating
So-
himself.
Right. So he officially separates himself, and then he immediately gets stabbed. So here's the thing about that. Fionn, right? Fionn is inside of Teorus, I guess. But he was told that whether he's
Can we
told
go back?
someone there or
Let's
not.
get. That's
Sorry,
in the
okay,
next
go ahead.
chapter. That's in the
Oh,
next
that
chapter.
is?
Yeah.
Is that not
Yeah.
in this chapter? Where after? Oh, wait, taking off his
Nope.
armor. Okay. Sorry, my brain just like links the two because he's like takes off his armor, steps outside, and he gets stabbed.
No.
But that's like just his point of view. So I'm just like, it
not
happens.
that
It's like
quickly.
within seconds. Like, come on.
I do love the metaphor of him
Um,
taking off his armor, especially now that we know how much is weighing him down. Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Yep.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Raoden makes it to the bottom of the mountain. The extermination begins. Raoden starts making markings in the ground. So I'm just going to do all this as one section. Raoden draws the Aeon. Karada dies. That's actually our first big death.
Hmm.
So there's some. We know that depth, height and width of an Aeon affect it. So I feel like it's kind of lucky that Raoden is just able to draw this into the dirt.
It's intent. It's intent, and I think a little bit of connection and fortune are guiding him in this
Intent.
moment.
Right. But we do learn that like with the thumb, I think is what your point is like, right? He talks about him using his thumb or his pinky or three fingers even to make lines when he's drawing aeons, and that can increase their power by having a greater accuracy to the line. Is that what you're talking about? And so the fact that he draws a line, which is a thin dirt line compared to walls, is that kind of what
Yes.
you're talking about?
Yes. And that I'm hoping we get like in the next one, like they made like, I don't know, just a single wall in the middle of this
Yeah, I mean
area.
they probably will.
Yeah, they probably cemented the chasm line with a wall.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, the Aeon is complete. The Elantrians are restored. Raoden just shows up and kicks butt. And Delof is kind of just maniacally laughing to himself.
Yeah, there aren't really any spoiler things to talk about in these chapters, but
Well, now that we're on 62.
Well, wild, yeah. I do have something for Fionn, but just like a wild speculation, I'm just kind of gonna throw out there. So they talk about once like an Aeon is drawn, so you can like draw an Aeon in the dirt and have its magic start working. But like they talk about like just like kicking it or scuffing it doesn't break the magic.
Yes.
So that's interesting piece. So like once the chasm line is drawn, like Kirita's body just falling on the line or something, like, or just like they can't just like come like scuff it or like take a hammer and like break a wall, like a little like piece of the wall off and like shut down the whole Aeon. But it then just like made me think like what could they do if their technology advances enough, right? In the next books or whatever. Like, could they then do like man-made changes to the landscape to turn off their power again? Right? A chasm is created by an earthquake. How big does it need to be in order to the landscape to get it to shut off? Could they if they took enough dynamite, stuck it in a mountainside?
If it was naturally made. We questioned if there was a possibility an Elantrian caused the chasm, or if maybe it was a Dawn Shard.
My thought was autonomy. Something autonomy did caused it.
Which we talked about the last time that I joined Dawn. But then the question is, so whether or not why doesn't autonomy just do it again, like in every book? Just like, I'm tired of you, break the land. I'm tired of you, break the land. Like, can autonomy really do that? Or is there something preventing autonomy from doing that? Because I think there's a lot of power raging there. Or can someone just change the landscape, right? Like, if you get enough people working for long enough, digging a hole through the mountains, that they set off a chain reaction, and that's one of, like, the landscape lines, and they break that line, would that like be equivalent of a chasm line? Could someone make it, whether it was natural or whether it was shard based, breaking the line and creating the chasm? So then I feel like that should be something like, maybe not something that they put all their eggs in their basket, but like once they have stuff like TNT and dynamite, go set up a big landslide, find somewhere, break it, set off enough of those, and as long as they have like something that can then like relay back, like, this is broken, Elantris like loses its power.
3 people know that it's tied to the land currently, and that's Galadin, Raoden, and Serene. Nobody else knows that Aeon is tied to the land.
But he says he also wants this information taught, so eventually all Elantrians will know, and if all Elantrians know, then they're going to tell other people.
He says he wants the Aeons taught, not necessarily the secrets behind them.
I think that Raoden would
Raiden
want
just want
people
wants
to
Oh,
know.
Raoden would absolutely. I'm Raoden
Yeah.
would, but I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if like they did keep that secret because that is kind of the source of their power.
No,
I don't think he's thinking that someone's gonna go blow up a freaking mountain to shut off their power and then come kill them all before they,
They
can
just had it
find the
happen.
new line.
They just had it happen.
But
Okay.
But he specifically says he wants Galadin to know all of his secrets, and then he wants Galadin to like go teach other people, like, because if he dies or something happens to him, then he wants other people to know in case something happens accidentally in the future. But the point is, once the secret gets out to enough people, secrets don't stay secrets forever. So eventually, the leaders of Shudareth would know. And I could just see that being a piece of a plot, like where you want to now purposefully cause a break in this. So anyway, that's just my personal theory. But
62. Kay, do you have to go?
yeah.
okay.
See you next week, Kay.
Yep. See
Yeah.
y'all next week.
Bye.
See you later.
Let's try to knock these out quick because I'm also tired. 62.
Same.
Delof would probably only follow Serini and Harathan after killing everybody else that he can in that area. Fionn! And this is where we can argue about Fionn.
Fionn. So he gets his instructions directly from
the Wyrn.
Wyrn.
And supposedly the Wyrn has connection/fortune abilities.
Right. Okay. So and that's my thing, is like he somehow knew. So the point is he had to have some sort of connection. But we do kind of learn that in Wobbs that Wyrn is kind of like Wax's sister. He's a chosen vessel of autonomy.
We don't know that Wyrn is. We know that Yadith was.
Oh, is it just? Oh, so Yadith is. I mean,
we know
you're
that
right.
Yadith was
is.
An
You're
avatar.
right. You're right. Yeah, Yadith is the vessel. So, but somehow he has to have had some sort of connection. You're right. He needs some sort of fortune in order to know where to send Fionn in order to kill Hrathen. Because like otherwise he'd never be like, oh yeah, he's gonna be over here. I guess unless he's like, oh, Delof, when you take over, make sure you take Hrathen with you.
Yeah.
So I'll go send this guy over here because I know Delof's gonna like revolt. But he also didn't know what day, so has like Fionn just been like sitting there sipping tea for like a week, like walking around being like, oh, I'll be here for another month maybe.
Like, it. Yeah, I had the same kind of thought process too, of just being like, well, yeah, I guess it is.
Sorry, I can't hear Reader. It looks like he's talking. Sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
Oh, no, just like, I had the same thought process too of like, yeah, I guess you could probably predict it if you knew you were going to be transporting everyone to Teod. But the fact that it calls it out does make you want to like pay more attention to it. Like, that detail is the kind of detail that is one of those little sleeper ones. Like, I think he wouldn't have put that in there unless it was kind of a reference to that.
Yeah,
I'm choosing to believe it.
Yeah. Learns how to heal correctly. Serini comments that Delof coming at her is the scariest thing she'll ever see in her life. So, like, on a scale of like hound pups to inquisitors, how scary is Delof?
I feel like Delof's gonna fall in like the Inquisitor category. Maybe not quite, but pretty close, because right, Inquisitors are scary because they've got the spikes and so they look really menacing. Delof is like warped and twisted, and literally just like looks totally inhuman because bodies shouldn't be shaped like that. So though his head may look normal, it's like it's like grafting like an innocent little human head on just like this twisted monster. Whereas Inquisitors their head is super scary, but their body visually looks like a regular thing. So I feel like they're gonna compare pretty similarly.
I'll put it at like a 7. If Hound Pup is a 0, Quizzer is a 10. I'll put him at like a
Oh.
7.
I'd put it closer to like a 9 personally, but
I think for
What do you
me it
think?
depends how creepy Deloff is before he takes his shirt off. We need a baseline here because that's going to determine how much this
I mean,
ramps up.
he looked pretty like regular innocent dude, and I think part of the reason it's so creepy is because remember when they talk about like on their heads they look like pretty regular innocent dudes when they're like cloaked and clothed, but then when it talks about their like rating, they're literally like describing it as like demons from hell are burning the city. The twisted like the way the shadows are like of like their twisted bones, like their chest cavities are like twisted and weird, and the shadow reflects off of that weird. So she already has this experience of this like terrifying demons in the night, and he has the exact same body and is going to invoke those types of emotions that she just had literally the night before as he charges her.
But if he's even slightly handsome, it's gonna decrease. It's gonna decrease the fear.
Handsome face, demon body. I think the juxtaposition is there, but I can see what you're getting at. I don't
Also,
know.
like Uncanny Valley. Could be an Uncanny Valley situation.
True. It's not even his
Um,
real face. It's like they warped it to look Aeroline, right?
Sure.
Yeah. We already argued about the curvature thing.
That's cool talk.
Serena gets saved again by her husband. Okay, so when they do Aeon Dea or Da, what is coming out? Is it just a concussive blast? Is it energy? Is it air pressure?
So it's not physical. Sorry, go ahead, Swiggity. I have
No, I was just
prepped.
I just don't really know what to make of it, to be honest, because I was wondering the same thing. It just means power, right?
It means power, right? So we know that their bodies are physically reinforced, so that's why they don't dodge, because they're used to physical force won't damage their bones very well. Swords, arrows, right? So if it's just like a blast of air, that is a physical force that's been manipulated. So this needs to be a power beyond physical power, like a physical, just like moving what's already there. It is an addition, a pulling of the door and sending a bolt of something that is beyond what their bones are created for. He had to sacrifice 50 monks in order to gain basically investiture resistance.
All that his men were torn apart by the Elantrians' attacks.
Right.
That
so the
implies
bolts
a
of power
physical...
still. But it says torn apart, right? But it's basically then says they're basically incinerated, essentially.
So it's like a
But we also
Kamehameha.
know investiture can have direct effects, and if enough investiture is in one spot, it can have a physical effect. So maybe it's
it
a
literally
mixture.
says down it. Deloff scrambled away, stumbling as a bolt of energy sprayed against his back.
Yeah. They're bolts of energy. So it's more like it's summoning like investiture powered plasma. But it's not just plasma, because if it's just plasma is just hot, right? It's just the next state, right? Solid, water, gas, plasma. So it's also not just plasma. It's gonna be it probably has a aura of plasma, because it's just like so much energy in one spot, and we know that investiture translates to like investiture, energy, and matter can all transition states, and so that's likely it's a bolt of investiture, and then the energy transfer is probably then creating like this ripple effect of like plasma around it. So when it hits, it's like starting to like transfer that energy and pull it apart, but then also like basically just incinerates with the energy.
I was listening to Rhythm of War yesterday, and Navani was talking to Raboniel, and she was talking about the difference between like potential and kinetic investiture. This seems like a good example of that. Like
kinetic
this would be
investiture.
Right.
A lot of kinetic investiture.
Highly kinetic.
The Skazi are mentioned. Swiggity, the Skazi are the Dominion Zeons.
Right,
that
right.
We see only in that little Hoyd short story.
Which I have not actually read.
I will
Read it
at the
when
very
it's
least
time.
take pictures of my book and just send them. It's literally like 2 pages.
Pretty sure I read it online too, so
I
there's
just
a
heard
link
about it
somewhere
today.
out there
I think it's
on the
somewhere online.
interwebs. I initially read it on the interwebs, so.
Anything else for chapter 62?
Nope.
Okay, 63. First Elantrian marriage in 10 years. I wonder how the Seons are changed. Please do not take this as a 10-minute conversation and theorization. Just something to note for book 2/3.
They all have chasm lines now.
No, because we know that the Seons continue to work even without them. They seem to have like a battery system, so they don't need the chasm line. Strangely. No, but like, Rayoden was commenting that Ayin seemed different now.
Oh,
So I'm
right.
wondering
That's
if
what you mean.
maybe connecting with an Elantrian is different than connecting with a normal person.
Dude, that made me think that while he was gone, he was like talking with somebody. And when he came back, he knew something he didn't know before. Like,
Or is it more like the idea of, well, let's take a look at what Rayoden kind of experienced when he was overwhelmed by pain. He kind of like described it as like he detached himself from his body and all the pain, just kind of floating in this nothingness. So what if
Yeah.
that's where it's almost like this nothingness, and that's where the Seons go, and so then being stuck like that for months, if not years, literally just like your own thoughts, and there's nothing you can interact with, right? We know
And it's
one
not
of the
like
worst
they
functions.
have. And we know that the humans, Elantrians, their minds could have blocked that off, and it was a psychological thing. We don't know if the Seons have that same escapism.
Right. And we don't know if they were overwhelmed with pain due to the like transition. Are they? Because
Yeah.
like the whole point is that it's a transition, but then they're paused and they're because of their connection to the person that's transitioning. When they're paused in their
They
transition,
also
it also
transition.
disconnects. They also are doing some sort of that they're affected by that transition, and
So does that imply that? Sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Does that imply that if Ayin were to connect with a normal person, would it transition back? Or if Ashy were to connect with an Elantrian, they would transition?
If you can switch that connection, then I would say they could. If the connection to the one whose mind is broken, then they would gain their mind back. If that connection, that like as we see in it's like a line, right? Like a line of connection. If that line of connection is then removed, because that connection is probably what's driving them mad, is that connection of being in a state of transition. So I bet but Rayoden just saying, "Hell, I give you to someone else now," likely wouldn't work because it is now already stuck in that state of transition. So you'd have to use some sort of investiture. So like if Dalinar showed up, 1,500 years before he was alive, and like was then like, let me take a look at your line. And was like, yoink. Let's take the Herald, because he was alive during that time, right? He shows up and is like, yoink, I take your connection and now I stick it to someone else. I think they would gain their mind back because part of that connection is part of what fuels them. So I'll end there with that, so we don't take this on any longer than that. But that's my thought on the mindlessness, gaining their mind back piece.
Sweetie, any last thoughts for this chapter set?
No, I did like I honestly I think we all need to get some rest. This has been a fun episode. Lots of cool
Yup.
discussions, but I'm very tired.
Okay. Well, that will just about cover it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us on Ramblings and Predictions. This has been Cosmere Connections, and we hope to see you next time.
Now my brain has blanked. Has completely blanked for
She
whatever.
does need the lyrics.
I know that feeling.
You know that feeling? Like, it's just.
I do. It's we put
Okay.
you on the spot.
Mhm.
I know. Okay. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Dashing through the snow, my rusty Chevrolet. Down the road I go, sliding all the way. I need new piston rings, I need some new snow tires. My car is held together by a piece of chicken wire. Oh, rust and smoke, the heater's broke, the door just blew away. I light a match to see the dash and then I start to pray. The frame is bent, the muffler went, the radio, it's okay. Oh, what fun it is to drive this rusty Chevrolet. Swerving through the drips in a big blue cloud of smoke. People laugh as I drive by, I wonder what's the joke. I got to get to Sears to get my layaways, 'cause Santa Claus is coming soon in his big old rusty sleigh. Oh, rust and smoke, the heater's broke, the door just blew away. I light a match to see the dash and then I start to pray. The frame is bent, the muffler went, the radio, it's okay. Oh, what's fun it is to drive this rusty Chevrolet. I got to get to Sears. Yeah, I can't.
We'll take it.
There we go. That's it. That's most of it. You know.
Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Wonderful job.
That'll be what gets animated.